You ever notice how overthinking feels responsible? Like you're lying in bed, replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, and part of you genuinely believes you're being productive. Because maybe if you analyze it one more time, you'll finally feel certain. But here's the problem. Most overthinking isn't problem solving. It's emotional self-defense. You're not finding answers. You're trying to avoid regret, avoid embarrassment, avoid uncertainty, avoid pain. And while your brain is running simulations at 2 a.m., life keeps moving. Opportunities pass. Texts stay unsent. Ideas die in notebooks. Relationships slowly cool off. And your confidence? It shrinks a little every time you teach yourself, thinking is safer than acting. That's the real cost. And today, we're going to break down exactly how overthinking quietly drains your life without you even noticing it. Not with fake motivation, not with just stop thinking. We're going deeper than that. Because overthinking is rarely about intelligence. Sometimes, it's fear wearing the mask of intelligence. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Here's something weird. Overthinkers often feel mentally exhausted without actually doing anything. No physical work, no real progress, but somehow your brain feels like it ran a marathon. Why? Because the brain treats imagined problems almost like real ones. Your body doesn't fully distinguish between I might fail and I am failing. That's why someone can spend an entire afternoon imagining worst-case scenarios and feel completely drained afterward. There's this guy named Daniel, smart guy, mid-30s, wanted to quit his corporate job and start a design studio. He had the skills, the savings, even clients already interested. But every night he opened spreadsheets, compared risks, watched productivity videos, researched taxes, read threads about failed startups. 6 months passed, then 1 year. One day he found out one of his old coworkers launched almost the exact same business idea, and it worked. That destroyed him. Not because someone else succeeded, but because deep down, he realized he never actually wanted certainty. He wanted permission to avoid risk. That's the trap. Overthinking disguises avoidance as preparation. And the scary part? Society rewards it. People call you careful, thoughtful, analytical. Meanwhile, your life is quietly stuck in buffering mode. And here's the twist nobody expects. Overthinking doesn't come only from thinking too much. Sometimes it comes from feeling too much without ever processing the emotion. That changes everything. Because now the problem isn't intelligence, it's emotional friction. Think about this. Have you ever replayed a tiny awkward moment for hours while the other person probably forgot it in 30 seconds? That's not logic. That's your nervous system trying to protect your social identity. Human beings are wired to avoid rejection. Thousands of years ago, rejection from the tribe could literally mean death. So now, your brain treats embarrassment like danger. That's why overthinking feels urgent. Your brain says, figure this out now or something bad will happen. But here's the problem. The brain hates unfinished stories. Uncertainty bothers us more than bad news sometimes. That's why people refresh messages, reread emails, analyze tone, check if someone viewed their story. Your mind wants closure. But modern life creates endless open loops. What if I chose the wrong career? What if they secretly dislike me? What if I wasted my 20s? What if I fail? What if I never become who I wanted to be? And the brain keeps scratching the same mental wound, hoping certainty will finally appear. But usually, it never does. A girl sits in her car outside the gym, engine off, phone in hand. She tells herself she's just checking something quickly. 20 minutes pass, then 40. She watches other people walk confidently into the building. Finally, she drives home. Not because she was lazy, because she spent the entire time imagining judgment. What if I look stupid? What if people stare? What if I don't know what I'm doing? And after enough fear, the mind concludes, maybe this just isn't for me. The workout never even became the real battle. The imagination did. And that's what overthinking does. It makes imaginary pain feel heavier than real experience. But the worst cost of overthinking isn't stress. It's something much more dangerous. Over time, it changes your identity. And most people never notice it happening. Your brain doesn't build confidence from affirmations alone. It builds confidence from evidence that you survived, acted, and improved. Your brain watches your actions and forms conclusions. So if you constantly hesitate, delay, avoid, second guess, your brain collects evidence that says, this person doesn't trust themselves. That becomes identity. You start saying things like, I'm just an anxious person. I'm an overthinker. I can't make decisions. But those aren't permanent personality traits. They're practiced mental habits. And here's the brutal irony. Overthinkers often believe more thinking will finally create confidence, but confidence usually comes after action, not before it. Here's something most people don't realize. Every time you overthink a decision for too long, you train yourself to fear decisions more. Your brain learns decisions are dangerous. So even small choices start feeling heavy. What should I wear? Should I text first? Should I leave or stay? And suddenly, life feels mentally exhausting. This is the part nobody talks about. The danger of overthinking is not just stress. It's that, little by little, it reduces your willingness to take risks, and eventually, you miss the very experiences that make life feel alive. I'm not talking about the dramatic risks, tiny ones, speaking honestly, posting the video, approaching someone, traveling alone, or trying something new. You begin optimizing your life around emotional safety, and at first, it feels smart, until one day you realize your world became painfully predictable. Years ago, I had a close friend who struggled badly with overthinking. On the outside, he seemed completely normal, but mentally, he was always somewhere else, trapped in his own head. One evening, he came over to my place. We sat there talking for hours, and at some point, he told me a story he said he would never forget. A few nights earlier, he had gone out to dinner with his wife. Nothing special, just a quiet little restaurant after a long day. His wife was talking to him about her day, but he barely heard a word she said. His hand kept scrolling through his phone, and his mind was lost somewhere else. Bills, career anxiety, an argument from the day before, a mistake he made years ago that he still couldn't let go of. He told me it felt like his brain had 10 different tabs open at the same time. Then suddenly, in the middle of her sentence, his wife stopped talking. She looked at him and said, "Are you even listening to me?" And in that moment, something hit him hard. For the first time, he realized his body had been sitting at that table the entire time, but mentally, he wasn't there at all. He was physically present, but he had completely missed the moment. That's another cost of overthinking. Presence disappears. You stop living life directly. Everything becomes filtered through analysis. And ironically, the more you analyze life, the less you actually experience it. But here's where things get dangerous, because eventually, overthinking creates a fake sense of control. And once people get addicted to control, they stop trusting life entirely. Most overthinking is an attempt to control uncertainty. That's the real engine underneath it all. You think, if I predict every possible outcome, maybe I won't get hurt. But life doesn't work like that. No amount of thinking can eliminate uncertainty. You can do everything right and still get rejected, still fail, still lose people, still feel pain. And honestly, that realization scares people because it means thinking cannot fully protect you. A woman rewrites a text message 11 times, deletes it, rewrites it, changes punctuation, reads tone into every word. An hour passes, then she finally sends, "Hey." 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Now her heart races, and suddenly the entire evening is emotionally controlled by a tiny, blinking typing bubble. That's a sign of modern overthinking. Your emotional state becomes hostage to uncertainty. But the surprising thing is this: the people who look the most confident in life usually aren't more certain than you. They're just more comfortable being uncertain. That's it. They act before they feel fully ready. They risk awkwardness, risk mistakes, risk failure. And because they act more, they gain more evidence, more experience, more resilience. Meanwhile, overthinkers wait for emotional clarity that never fully arrives. This is important. Action creates information. Thinking alone usually creates distortion. Your brain is terrible at predicting reality accurately when isolated too long. That's why feared experiences are often much smaller in real life than in imagination. The call wasn't that bad. The gym wasn't that scary. The presentation didn't destroy you. The conversation didn't end your life. Reality tends to be less catastrophic than imagination. Here's one of the most effective mindset shifts for overthinkers. Stop asking, "What's the perfect decision?" Start asking, "What decision gives me more real information?" That changes everything. Because now action becomes data collection, not identity, not destiny, just information. You try, you learn, you adjust. That's how emotionally healthy people operate, not by eliminating uncertainty, but by moving with it. And there's one final truth about overthinking that most people only realize years later. The biggest pain usually isn't failure, it's regret. At the end of life, people rarely regret imperfect action. They regret hesitation, the conversation they never had, the art they never shared, the place they never went, the version of themselves they never allowed to exist. Because overthinking quietly convinces you there will always be more time later. Later, I'll start. Later, I'll speak honestly. Later, I'll live fully. But later becomes a habit, and eventually, a lifetime can disappear inside preparation. Picture an older man sitting alone in a quiet apartment, TV flickering softly, rain outside the window. He opens an old notebook. Inside are ideas he once cared deeply about, business plans, travel goals, things he wanted to create. Some pages are yellow now. He stares at them for a long time. Not devastated, just haunted. Because deep down, he knows life didn't defeat him. Fear of uncertainty did. And that realization is unbelievably heavy. All right, we've talked a lot about overthinking and what it's really costing you. Now let's wrap this up. Overthinking feels safe in the moment, but slowly, it steals energy, presence, confidence, time, and eventually, possibility itself. You do not need absolute certainty to move forward. You need enough courage to take one honest step. That's it. Because clarity often comes after movement, not before it. So here's the question I want to leave you with tonight. What part of your life has been waiting for a version of certainty that will never come? And what would happen if you acted anyway? If this video spoke to something real inside you, subscribe, because this channel is not about empty motivation. It's about understanding the invisible patterns quietly shaping your life, so you can finally take your mind back. And before you leave, comment one thing you've been overthinking for too long. Sometimes naming it out loud is the first moment it starts losing power.